So this is Brad Frager, and I'm interviewing Solomon Davis, the Assistant Director of Fairfield Arts and Convention Center, whose major responsibility right now is Fairfield Cinema, or Cinema Fairfield. Mm-hmm. And great to be able to talk to you, Solomon. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, same here, Brad.
So why don't we get started with the beginning? Tell me a little bit about where you were born and where you grew up.
I was born in a house in Comanche, Iowa, along the Mississippi River, not too far from Fairfield. It's a sister town to Clinton, Iowa, which is where I spent most of my childhood. And then when I was 18, I went off to college 7 hours away, which could have put me in about 7 different states from my hometown, but I still was in Iowa. I was like the farthest away from home and to stay in the same state. But I went to Northwestern College in Orange City, Iowa, and was a theater major. And then I moved to Omaha for a year and did improv theater with 88 Improv. And then I moved to Holland, Michigan, because I thought I was going to write a book about improvisational theater, but I never did. I decided I wanted to go back into theater, and my college that I mentioned did a summer tour. The summer where I wanted to get back into acting happened to be the summer that they were going to go to Japan. So I had the great privilege of touring that summer, going to Japan. It was on that tour that we came through Chicago. And in Chicago, there was a conference where they were holding auditions. And one theater that year did not find what they were looking for at auditions. I got there a day late. Apparently, Taproot Theater out of Seattle, Washington, didn't find anybody at the auditions that fit what they were looking for. I got connected with them. I chose to go to Seattle, and that's where I've spent the last couple of decades of my life. I spent my 20s as a professional actor, full-time there, doing touring, improv, and main stage shows. And then I spent my 30s more or less as an educator and acting instructor. And then the pandemic hit, and people, all the theaters were shut down and school was online. It sort of broke my spirit, and the city of Seattle sort of also broke my spirit in a variety of ways. And so I found myself wanting to return to the Midwest.
But there's something happened in between that you haven't told us about. You met somebody.
I did, yes. I met my now wife, Sidney. Somewhere in the weird last few years, we came to visit. The spirit of the Midwest felt so good. We knew that we needed to move here, so we spent the last year and a half in search of where we could live and what we could do with our lives. And in that search, Fairfield popped up, and this job here at the convention center popped up, and so here I am.
So now you're here, and you're in charge of Cinema Fairfield.
Yes. And have you seen the movie Cinema Paradiso?
I don't think so.
It is a wonderful, I believe it's an Italian film. Yeah, it's an Italian film. It's often credited with reviving the movie industry in Italy. Anyway, it's a great film. It's a movie about movies, in a way. It's a movie about a cineplex, or a cinema. Anyway, I highly recommend it. So, I just think it's funny. I didn't come up with this name. It was actually a default that the web designers just put as a placeholder when they were revamping our website. And we just kind of got used to it. And then when I made the connection with Cinema Paradiso, I kind of liked it. So
It seems to me that you've been fairly successful already.
depends on how you want to define it. But there are a lot of happy people, and there's a lot of gratitude and joy. People coming in the door and getting their popcorn and finding a seat in the movies again. So what people will know as the Sondheim Center for the Performing Arts. Yeah, we have a screen that we house up in the fly space, and we bring that down. So we had to get a cinema grade projection system installed. So we actually get a new designated computer, interface, some other switches. We're trying to get it to a point where, like, if you go to a big Cineplex, they'll have it set up now where things are digital, that you can just press a couple of buttons, the lights change, you switch, you know what I mean? The movie starts, we're not quite there yet. We do need a trained projectionist to be there to tweak the sound. And so we had to do the equipment. We had to get that in order. We had to get our contracts in order. And in October, we had a couple of studios secured. They had given us the okay. Then the next stage was to have a buyer, and this is a person who negotiates with the studios based on kind of our windows of availability. So I have to schedule our screenings around our live performances. For example, coming in Thanksgiving, we're closed Thanksgiving Day, but we have 3 days post that we can show movies, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Not a lot of movie theaters should do a 3-day run. They usually do a 2-week or a month run of something, right? But we only have those 3 days. So the buyer takes that information to the studio and says, hey, I got this single screen theater. It's got 200 seats, unobstructed, by the way. There's 500 seats in the theater, but only 200 have an unobstructed view. So that's how we count. That, what will you charge them or us to get the licensing to show that?
So you're renting films in the same way that the Ottumwa Theater rents films.
Correct. It's called a DCP, a digital cinema package, and it's a hard drive that comes in the mail, and we ingest that into kind of a computer that's connected with the projector. And then they send us a unique key, like a password that's only good for a short amount of time. And then that's what gives us access to the film.
So that's how you get first run, because that was one of the big questions I had.
It's not technically a first run. A first run would be when you open on the Friday that it opens nationwide. So we are kind of in this strange, and it depends on the studio, but for most big studios, we're in this strange place that's called off the break, and before it goes to video on demand, kind of in this murky, ever-changing landscape between those times. So the break is kind of the big release, the first run sort of window, because studios, where it used to be like 90 days sometimes a movie would play in the movie theater. Well, now it's sometimes 1 month, and then it's on to video on demand. And sometimes it depends on, like the big budget Marvel movie, or like Top Gun, for example, had a very long first run compared to, or theatrical window compared to a lot of the other movies. Ticket to Paradise, I think it was out for just a week before we got it.
That was a very good explanation of how the movies work here.
I hope
really
so.
Appreciate it.
If you go to our, so we have a newsletter called Real News, and you can access that through, if you go to any of the web pages for our movies, I do have a button on there where you can easily subscribe, and then I'll send you a couple emails each month with updates from what I get, because I was going to do it monthly, but I'm finding that I'd get notice from our buyer a week before we have a scheduled window of opportunity. So, for example, I just found out what we were going to show Thanksgiving weekend late last week. Yeah, so we're doing this movie. I think it's pronounced Tar. Kate Blanchett. It looks. I'm really excited about this one. It looks very taut and interesting and exciting. She plays this conductor, and I don't know too much about it. The trailer doesn't give very much away. And then on the lighter side, we have a family-friendly feature. So because school will be out on Friday, I wanted to get a matinee for the weekend. And so we're going to show Lyle Lyle Crocodile. And then I think I just got confirmation in my inbox right before you got here. So I'm looking forward to see what we have secured for our next window post. And we're also wanting to bring in local filmmakers and local films, or regional filmmakers, regional films. Alana Waxman grew up here, and the Waxmans live here. She screened her feature film and was able to have a Q&A afterwards. And I thought that was a really lovely opportunity for the community and for the filmmaker. So we want to continue doing that as often as we can, as well as Dick DeAngelis, who does the history series. And we had a short film play recently too, called Smiling Death, which brought in a great audience that ended up staying for the feature film. A lot of them came to watch the short film. Didn't know that there was another thing happening after that, which was this epic, amazing sci-fi film called Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that was a fun night.
So we can say, but you're open to have films presented to you, and with a good chance that they will show in the theater. Mm-hmm. Now, does the filmmaker get a share of the income on those?
That's a great question. We haven't fine-tuned the model, but I believe we'll do something similar to what we do with the studios, which is we kind of give them like a guarantee where we sort of buy it for the run.
And I hope that some filmmakers will see this interview and take advantage of that opportunity, as I'm sure as you hope so too.
Yeah.
Well, we can tell the people that your movies are highlighted always on the Fairfield Journal front page. And so they can always find out what's happening anytime, day or night, what's happening with Cinema Fairfield. Personally, I'm delighted that you and Cindy are in town, and that you're making Fairfield your home, and that you're adding to the community in a very entertaining and exciting way, because the cinema is something that the community needs. I hope you'll be here for a long time.
Me too.
Thank you very much.